Today, in this video, we're talking Lord of the Rings. How would Treebeard, the Ent, the walking plant man, feel about vegans? People who eat exclusively plants. I think there are good points to be made on either side, and really I'm making this video not because I'm sitting here with a decided answer, but because I'm interested to hear people in the comments weigh in. So I really do encourage you to comment on this video specifically if you have points for or against why Ents would feel a certain way about vegans. Full disclosure, I have not read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I read the first half of The Fellowship in probably 8th grade and have always been meaning to pick it up, and I know, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, I need to read them. For the purposes of this video, I am looking mainly at the movie representation of the Ents, but since this video is for intellectuals only, I did do my research. I will be pulling citations from the books, mostly The Two Towers, so let's jump into it. So let's talk about what we think of our initial assumptions when it comes to the vegan-Ent relationship. When you think about a vegan, you might think about a tree hugger, a plant lover, somebody who would obviously be a supporter of the Ents. But you might also, in the back of your mind, be thinking of, you know, when people kind of tease vegans who are vegan because they don't want to eat animals, and they're like, the animals have feelings. Sometimes people are like, but the plants have feelings, nobody can eat. And that's annoying. But here in Middle Earth, do the plants have feelings? So I think we need to make a distinction between Ents and trees and other plants, because not all trees are Ents. Ents are trees that are woken up. So the elves are waking up the trees and making them more Entish. If you're a vegan, are you specifically targeting plants and in a way making them even lower on the taxonomy hierarchy than they are? Because I think we have to agree, if we're gonna order life, trees and plants, they're just lower. You can't not eat them. If you eat animals, what are the animals eating? They're eating plants. Any way you slice it, the plants are on the bottom of the food chain. Somewhere along the way, you're gonna be consuming a plant of some sort. So the older elves, the ones at the very beginning, they're the ones who brought up the Ents, who began speaking to them and turning them Entish. They used to just be trees, but the elves were like, hey, that's a tree. What about talk to it? And then the Ents were like, hello. That's exactly how it happened. These older elves, some of them, it seems like in the Silmarillion, I don't have the quote, were probably practicing vegetarians because they were just a fan of the animals. And good for them. I don't know how the Ents felt about it though. I wish I could ask. That'd make this video much easier. But here we have Treebeard reading some poetry because it's Lord of the Rings, and there's poetry up all throughout that book. And he talks about the harvest. That seems to imply that people need to be eating something, so a plant diet is probably fine. Because I think corn, that's gonna be fine. You can eat corn. Corn's not turning into Ents unless the elves start talking to it, you know, like, hey corn, wake up. Please don't. Elves don't talk to corn. I like corn too much. I'm a Midwest girl. My thought is Treebeard might support people just eating their normal diet and would be skeptical of those that go out of their way to only eat plants. That's kind of a thought that I have. So when you think vegan, you might think, go green. I love the environment. I'm doing this for the earth. But Lord of the Rings exists in a world pre-industrial revolution. In Middle Earth, they're not worried about carbon emissions. They're worried about a Dark Lord taking over. So like priorities. There are much more real and pressing problems. Vegans in Middle Earth don't make as much sense in a world with no industrial revolution. So that's points in Ents being anti-vegan. They're probably pro eating your normal diet. But thoughts that they might be pro-vegan, we know Ents are anti-deforestation. If you're cutting down trees to build military weapons, stop it. Get some help. The Ents are not your friends. But if you're cutting down trees for your own little cottage life, for your own little cottage core, you like my shirt? For your own little cottage core moment, does that make you public enemy number one to the Ents? Probably not. There's that weird bear guy from The Hobbit that eats nothing but like milk and honey. And I think that he's buds with the Ents. So Now, if we're looking at the movie, we see this from the extended edition, a clip from Saruman's storeroom where Pippin and Merry are also kind of on this wavelength. Like, how would Treebeard feel about us smoking the Longbottom leaf and not sharing with him?
Wait! Do you think we should share it with Treebeard?
Share it? No. No. Dead plant and all that. Don't think he'd understand. Could be a distant relative.
And like, they're just hobbits. They don't really know what's up. They're pretty sheltered, so I'm not relying on them for the cultural experts of Middle-earth. But look at this quote when Treebeard is getting upset and angry at Saruman's mishandling of the forest and cutting down things to help support the Dark Lord. Like, Saruman, you will flop. Okay, he says, "Curse him, root and branch. Many of those trees were my friends, creatures I had known from nut and acorn." Okay. Treebeard knows that not all trees are Ents. Some are just trees. But when does being an Ent start? He knew them from acorn? Tree life starts at conception? So this leads me to believe that in Middle-earth, Treebeard either supports you just following your normal natural diet and not going out of your way to target eating plants. But if you were to be a vegan in Middle-earth, and perhaps this extends to any diet, all diets, I think that you would have to redefine what's vegan. I think things like acorns, that's clearly off the menu. So maybe tree nuts, avoid cinnamon. Cinnamon is a bark of a tree, that cannot be Ent vegan. How would you know if the cinnamon trees had been growing Entish or not? Treebeard might not take it too kindly if you were skinning his friends alive. So Ripped Your Pumpkin Spice Lattes, it's not vegan in Middle-earth. Another food that I think is probably not vegan in Middle-earth, maple syrup. I don't think that you can just be stabbing a bunch of trees and taking their sap in order to make syrup for your pancakes. And now let's think, what would Treebeard himself say? So I've been saying a lot of my own conjectures of just stances and things that he said, what I think he might think, but if we asked him, he'd probably take a decade to respond. Don't get me wrong, he's a very pensive and slow-thinking guy. But I think he'd probably say he's not on any side of this argument. Because, as we see in the book, I am not altogether on anybody's side. Because nobody is altogether on my side. If you understand me, nobody cares for the woods as I care for them. Not even the elves nowadays. So, you know, I don't think Treebeard is going to be pro-vegan. I think that that's something I feel strongly about. Do I think he's going to be anti-vegan? Not necessarily. I don't think that there's a basis for that, but I would think that he'd come to the conclusion that we need to change what being vegan means. And then I would think he probably thinks this whole video is orc mischief. That's just my rudimentary thoughts. If you have additional information from reading the series or the Silmarillion, please sound off in the comments below. Have I missed anything glaringly obvious in the vegan Ent discussion that you think should have been covered? Just food for thought.